I remember how it happened with me. I had the best of everything. I had a profession. I was self-employed. And I used to live in the city of Rehovot back then. And I felt unable to go on living the life that I had been living. So much so that all of a sudden, I was overcome by some internal impulse. And I just felt that I had to search for something. I sat in my car and I started driving. It was in the evening during the winter, and it was rainy and windy. The weather was very unpleasant, and I didn't know where to go or what to do. While I was driving, I kept thinking, how will I find this place? What is it that I need? Where's my heart taking me? It was some sort of an internal impulse, and I can't really explain it. So I drove to the city of Bnei Brak. Before that, I had been there maybe once or twice. And when I got there, I rolled down my window and I asked a man standing by a traffic light, "Tell me, where does one study Kabbalah around here?" And he, as if ready for it and waiting for me, said, "You know what? Take a left here and drive up to the orchard, and right across from that, at that synagogue, that's where it is. Just go in there, they study Kabbalah there." I arrived there and I saw some sort of a dark building, and I went in. And there was this small room where 5 or 6 elders sat, studying something from a book. The elder at the head of the table said, "You can sit down." So I did. And I didn't understand a word. They were studying the book of Zohar in Aramaic. And then one of them said, "All right then, let's study something," and he opened a book. I was sitting across from him, and he began to read and explain the text very slowly. After 5 minutes, I already knew that I had found my place. I felt it in my heart, and I knew that I'd never leave it. I realized that there was nothing else in life, that the whole world and everything that humanity has gone through was created for the sole purpose of delving into this internal point. All of the questions that I had asked all my life, and possibly not just this lifetime, but in previous incarnations as well, I began to understand. They were starting to make sense. You begin to understand what you're living for, how to live, and how the world is structured, how the whole system works. I know which types of actions affect the world for better, or, God forbid, for worse. The book opens for me the possibility of actually becoming a master of this life. So I kept going, one time after another. At first, it was twice a week, and later on I started coming every evening, and then eventually I started coming in the mornings also. This elder, their leader, became my rabbi, and later on, my Rebbe, so to speak, meaning the great one, the teacher. I started spending all of my time near him, connected to him, throughout the day, and thus slowly absorb from him everything that I possibly could. We used to come to the park quite regularly. I used to park the car and go this way with my teacher on our daily walk. And this is the way it was every day, from about 9 a.m. to 12 or 1 p.m. And the park was empty. For years, apart from Independence Day or maybe some other special events, this park was literally deserted. So then we used to start walking, usually this way, with my rabbi next to me, and I to his right. Our entire walk was filled with my questions. and his answers. And we continued in this manner for years. Rabash was very interested in this world. He would listen to the news, he was interested in everything that went on in this world, naturally weighing all that against the higher providence. Every hour I'd have to turn on the radio and let him listen to the news for about 2 or 3 minutes. During the war in Lebanon, he'd listen to the news even during class. And back then there used to be visitors from time to time, and he used to stop the class anyway. It was the strangest thing. You interrupt a Torah discourse, the study of such exalted things, to listen to the news. Someone once asked him, "How can that be? What's going on here? It's not our custom to listen to the radio," said some Orthodox guy that just happened to be there. By chance or not, I don't really recall exactly. So Rebbe said, "If you had sons up there, you would certainly be interested in what was going on there, and with your heart. You'd be there, and you'd definitely turn the radio on and listen, because you'd feel that your destiny depended on it. And up there are all our soldiers, all of which are my sons, and I am deeply sad and worried about them." And from this story, one can definitely understand the extent to which a Kabbalist, who was part of Judaic Orthodoxy, develops a special sentiment for the people, caring about the entire nation, the entire world, just as Baal Salam writes in the articles, the Arvut, the Bond, and Matan Torah, the revelation of godliness, that the more developed a person is, the more his preoccupation moves from himself to his family, and from his family to his relatives, from his relatives to his society, and from his society to his country and to the entire world. And certainly, when a Kabbalist begins to develop his soul, he begins to feel, through his soul, the extent of its connection to the rest of the souls, regardless of gender or race. And he begins to care for the entire world. Because on the whole, we're all connected, like one kli, one vessel, in a structure called Adam Harishon, the first man, toward the Creator. Rabash was really the last of the Mohicans. And with every year that goes by since his passing, we see more and more that it really is so. No one of his stature has risen after him, either in scope or magnitude, and there are basically no Kabbalists at all these days. We are truly the last generation that's fallen into a huge descent, and so out of this descent, there is just one way out. We have to ascend upward. His father was the divine Kabbalist that founded the whole wisdom of Kabbalah for this generation. This is something that no one had ever done before him in the entire history of Kabbalah. All the Kabbalists up until Baal Salam, Rabbi Yehuda Ashlag, used to write only for themselves, for those of their generation and for those who were already in attainment of the wisdom. In other words, hardly any Kabbalist prior to Baal Salam wrote Kabbalah for those who had no spiritual perception, who were not Kabbalists. Baal Salam was the first. He did it by writing the wisdom of Kabbalah in a language and in a particular style that anyone who is not yet at the level of higher attainment or even knows what it's all about, yet has only a yearning for something that is above this world, could attain spirituality with the help of his books, enter the perception of the upper world, and draw near to the Creator and understand what the Creator's thoughts are. Recently, we've started enlightening the academic circles in Israel regarding Baal Salam, who he was, and the extent of his achievements in the field of Jewish philosophy. And they now recognize that they missed him altogether, not realizing that this was a giant who, in his books, provided explanations regarding all of human history and reality in its entirety, the creation of the worlds and our world, the whole process that humanity goes through. And with all of that, he paved a path for us, for attaining the purpose of creation. And he also explained what really lies ahead for us. Baal Salam's son, the eldest son, my teacher, clarified the words of Baal Salam even further, especially with regard to the internal work of an individual, a man's personal attainment within the spiritual worlds, so that each and every person, if he just has the desire, if he's interested and yearning for something that exists above our nature, above this world, feeling that this world cannot fulfill him, could open the books of both Baal Salam and Rabash and really fly into heaven with them. I used to come here with these questions, strolling here with him, and we'd talk about the articles that he was going to write next. And later on, when we'd get back home, I'd stay downstairs. It was dark and deserted, and my teacher would go back upstairs. I would make him a cup of coffee, and he'd sit at the typewriter. And later, I would hear him typing from his apartment. He'd be doing articles with one finger, and they turned into 7 or 8 page-long articles every week. This man was by no means lazy. He used to provide comprehensive explanations in every which way and manner possible, only to make sure that we would be able to feel and understand all the roads we travel on our path to spiritual attainment. From time to time, Kabbalists leave their permanent settings. They leave their families, their children, their wife, disciples, the seminaries, the place where they study and where they live, and they go to a completely different place. I used to go with my rabbi for a few hours a day, and also occasionally for a couple of days out of the week, to the city of Tiberias, Mount Meron, up north, where we could be completely alone. Getting away like that is a necessary thing for a man who wants to feel how to depart from the influence of society, even from the influence of his close environment. He feels that he must be by himself, he and the higher power, in a secluded place, absent from all alien thoughts, absent from all influence. Where people aren't coming to see you and you're alone for long periods of time, engaged in writing and reading special texts. You get into them and connect through them to the upper forces, to the Creator, to the universal higher power. And this enables you to remain there and not be cut off by external disturbances. The first time we went, I felt it in a very powerful way. I had already been connected to my teacher for about a year, year and a half, when one day he just took off all of a sudden and he went to Tiberias all by himself. That was before we had started going up there together. So I happened to visit him while he was in that state there. I remember going up to the apartment where we later used to spend time together for many years. I went up to his apartment and I knocked on the door. He opened the door for me, and I could not see that this man was actually looking at me. He didn't see me. A few minutes later, he was able to refocus on me, and he looked at me, and then he abruptly said, "Who told you to come to me?" He blurted out spontaneously, "What'd you come here for? What are you doing here?" He said it in such a manner that I felt myself alienated from him, as if I didn't belong to him. He was on such a high level of existence that he didn't even know me. Even though I was so close to him, I was his disciple and his aide. After 2 years passed from the time of that encounter in Tiberias, he said to me, "Let's start going there together." And then I was absolutely able to feel that he was taking me with him. In Tiberias, we studied mostly from Beit Shar HaKavanot and Talmud Eser Sephirot, the study of the 10 Sephirot, part 16, which explains about the structure of Adam Harishon, the first man, and the structure of his soul. How his soul divides into parts, and which parts. How these parts go on dividing all the way down until they reach the souls of humans who are already in existence at a lower level called this world. And then this soul from within begins to feel that it exists not only in the spiritual world, but that there is a physical reality before it. So, what is the physical reality in actuality? It is the soul's perception that there's an additional reality as a result of its descent to the abyss, to the lowest state of its desires. The studies were extremely profound and very emotional. Parts of the Zohar study of the 10 Sephirot, and some other Kabbalist writings, which I'm not yet permitted to discuss. There's this thing called Megillat Starim, the secret scroll, that was written by Kabbalists in private. It was only for themselves or for those who had an understanding. He used to take these texts and explain them to me, reading all sorts of letters and articles that were incomprehensible were it not for his clarifications. Nowadays, there's regret. Naturally, I'd be able to absorb more from him if he were still with us today. Today, people are coming to realize that there's no way that we can achieve anything in our lifetime here in this world. Fatigue, drugs, a global crisis has hit the world, and it's made people lose interest in what's happening, lose interest in any of the illusions that they used to have, and they just don't expect anything good from technological progress. That's why today the writings of Baal Salam have come back to life, and making him known to the public is our goal. It's our mission, and it's our duty.